around one and all as we celebrate the magic of women in cinema at our Film Coven. We're your hosts, Kelli Mehan and Melissa Woody, and today we have our second annual International Women's Day panel, and it's our pleasure to welcome Nicki, Hannah, Abby and Jeannine as we're going to be talking about some of our favourite women behind the camera and female characters today. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
We're going to get straight into it. A pick that is quite near and dear to me, and someone that I would hear the name of for so long, but the more I dive into my love of film and especially classic movies is Mary Pickford. Mary Pickford is one of those classic film actresses from the silent era, and when I look into her story, there's always more bits and pieces that I seem to really find and relate to. So the fact that she really negotiated her salary, she was one of these first actresses that took the business side of the movie making industry so seriously and pushed forward for more inclusion, more women. She was one of the only women who founded the Academy Motion Picture of Arts. She helped found the Studio of Uniting Artists with Douglas Fairbanks and Charlie Chaplin. I remember watching the movie Chaplin being like, oh, that's Mary Pickford and this is the sort of things that we're doing here. So it's great that we are sort of seeing a little bit more of her now, but in the same breath, I feel like she started to become a bit of a forgotten name. It's not someone I think I could walk down the street and be like, oh, Mary Pickford, and people would be like, know who I'm talking about exactly. You might find the odd person who says, familiarish name, but not the accomplishments that she did. And as I sort of said, to really push the industry further. I've also read texts about how she was quite sexually harassed, especially by D.W. Griffiths, and wasn't able to be part of that Me Too movement, but at least was able to say no and had this strong inner resolve. And at the same time, it's just so sad that this is one of the people that Norma Desmond from Sunset Boulevard was directly inspired by, because she could not make the transition from being the biggest silent film actress at the time to talking pictures. And it's just sad that some of our women actresses at this time felt very disposable. And it's just a Hollywood story that has a bit of a sad ending. And I would like to know more about her story. Hannah, what are your thoughts on Mary Pickford?
Yeah, I am not as well versed in Mary Pickford as I need to be, but I really love that there is sometimes there's a narrative in film that that women were not part of the original thing, that we did not have a lot to do in the early days, and it's only like these days now that people are getting to do things. And so it's really cool to get to look back at the earliest days of cinema and be like, excuse me, no, people like Mary Pickford were not only in front of the camera being, the it girl, the girl next door that America fell in love with, but also were actively part of forming what film became. And that's something that I think does not get discussed enough. And if I knew more about it, I would discuss it more often. But it's something that I'm just reminded that we've always been there, and we've always been working to make things better and to try to get our voice out there. And that's something that sometimes gets glossed over in film canon discussions.
Absolutely. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Mary Pickford?
Me and Kelli like to give each other homework. Like I give her things that she needs to watch and vice versa. And Mary Pickford is somebody I still do need to see her films. I did watch a documentary about her, and I was seeing so many parallels with Judy Garland. It was kind of blowing my mind. Like very young actress. Like I think she started working when she was 8 years old. They both helped with war effort things. They got typecasted in these child kind of hood roles, and very, very popular. And I was just like, whoa, there's so many parallels going on with Judy Garland and Mary Pickford. But no, she really was a pioneer actress and a trailblazer producer. And for better or worse, she is a big part of how Hollywood is today. And so I think she's just somebody that we do need to remember who she is. And I need to do my homework and watch more of her movies, because I've yet to see them, but I will.
Nothing matters.
Nicki, we're going to throw it over to your pick. Tell us about Stephanie Sue.
I was so excited to pick her for this. So as we were kind of talking about earlier, I'm a huge theater fan. And so I've known her since she was Karen the computer wife in the SpongeBob musical and the cult classic Be More Chill. So when I saw that she was like kind of starting to appear in a lot more mainstream film and TV work, I was like, holy crap, like this is awesome. Because I just get excited when anyone like the Ashley Parks or any other theater people like actually make the mainstream. And then, I mean, there's not much to be said about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Everyone in that movie is fantastic. But she made that movie for me. It was also largely the costume design, but she has a dual role. Both just on their own would have been fantastic in themselves, but just the subtleness she plays as the daughter, and then as Jobu Tabaki, she has to have such a wide, insane range for that, where she's menacing but hilarious and then heartbreaking. If she had won that year, there's a lot of people that I think were deserving that year, but if she had, I would have also been very happy. And then obviously she had freaking Joyride last year where she had to like do some insane shit. And she just pulls it off. And that's in another like wide ensemble of amazingly talented women. So I'm just so excited for more of what she's going to do. And I hope she gets to sing eventually more in some of the stuff she does. But honestly, I'm so excited for her and see what she's going to bring in the future.
Absolutely. As you just sort of said, it's the future. When I saw this pick, I'm like, she's really just one of those working actresses at the moment that I'm just so excited to see what she's going to pick. I know this is Film Coven, but I love Mrs. Maisel, the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yes.
So seeing that, like, I'm Amy Sherman Palladino fan, so that's where I was introduced to her, and then I watched Everywhere All at Once afterwards. I'm like, oh wow, like just as you sort of mentioned, the range, like, and I didn't even know about her musical theatre background until like I started looking her up. So I'm hoping maybe some big musical movies might be in the future. I would love to see that. Hannah, what are your thoughts on Stephanie?
I was a huge fan of her from Be More Chill, and then went and saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so I went into that movie kind of blind, not knowing really anything about it. And so I didn't know what to expect from her character. And man, she just brought I don't, as amazing as the rest of the movie is, as amazing, obviously, as Michelle Yeoh is, and the rest of the cast and the writing and the editing, I think that she was so much, like, she was a huge piece of the emotional weight of that movie and, like, grounded it in the frustration and the fear and the loneliness that this character feels. And I don't think it could have been the same movie without her work on it. And I'm also very excited to see where she goes. I hope that she's not one of these actresses who gets a big break and then just kind of fizzles, because it would be so, so sad to not get to see more of her. So I hope she's got a lot of stuff lined up. I am excited to see her and whatever comes up next for her.
Oh, absolutely. Abby, what are your thoughts on Stephanie?
Yeah, so I just wanted to echo everything that everyone has already said about her. I'm not as familiar with like the background and some of the other movies. I did do a little bit of research and I saw about the musical theater background, and I love that she played Karen the computer in the SpongeBob musical. That's amazing. That's like my favorite thing that I learned about this. But no, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, it really is one of the best movies to come out in recent years, and she really was a shining top part of that entire movie. Just the two different characters that she played in that movie was really great. Loved seeing the differences in just her acting in both characters, honestly. And I haven't seen Joyride. That is one that's been on my list to see, but from what I have seen, she really is great.
Fantastic. Jeannine, tell us your thoughts on Stephanie.
Yes, again, just to kind of echo everything everyone's saying, I also became familiar with her in Mrs. Maisel. She was showing just great comedic chops there. And I also loved the representation that she brought to that show, because her being an Asian character was also touched upon in the plot of that show. And then, yes, Everything Everywhere, the range that she had to pull with that character to be strong and mischievous, and also, the heartbreaking, like you said. She was kind of the heart of the movie. So I I'm so bummed that she did not win because I thought she was great. And then Joyride, yeah, like so hilarious. I definitely want to see her sing because I also did not know about the musical theater background. I just love that she is this great point of representation, and she also has this mainstream appeal as well. So she can definitely translate in any kind of genre, but comedy, I think she definitely excels at. So I really, really love her.
Melissa, wrap up our thoughts on Stephanie for us, please.
Yeah, I basically echo what everyone has said. I do need to see Joyride. I have not seen it. Everything Everywhere All at Once was definitely one of my favorite movies. And I do think she should have won. I'm just gonna say it.
Yes.
But yeah, she brings a lot of depth to her characters and authenticity, and she's a very captivating performer. And I'm super excited to see what she has next in store for her. She has a really exciting career ahead.
I don't want to be worshipped. I want to be loved.
We're going from one of like our favorite new emerging stars to an absolute Hollywood staple mainstay. Hannah, please tell us about Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, so Katharine Hepburn is amazing. It's just a legend in so many ways. And as one of the things that is maybe notable is that there were times where she was there were accusations of her not being so much an actress as just continuously playing herself, which I think is maybe a fair suggestion, although she's got some amazing roles. But I love that her characters are almost always they're intelligent women, which we did not always get at that era in cinema history. They are women who know what they want and are willing to go for it, which we do not get very often in that era of history. And then she was also just pushing against the glamorization of the female stars of that time. Like she pioneered, she was one of the first people who really was one of the women who was like wearing trousers when it was not a thing, and like made strides in that. And she was not a fan of like the paparazzi and was like, I'm going to keep my private life to myself, and was just always pushing for what she wanted to do in her work. And I think that comes through so clearly. And I just, all the movies that I've seen of her, she just captures this spirit of a different kind of femininity than we got in the 40s and 50s. Even when she's playing like some of the sort of the ditzier characters and like Bringing Up Baby or something like that, she's still very determined and very focused and is still going to get stuff done. I think probably my favorite. Okay, so I don't know my favorite, but one of my favorites of hers that doesn't get as much attention is her work in Desk Set, which is an early movie about computers, where she plays like, I felt so connected to that character as a young nerd child, and this woman, this nerdy woman in the world of leading this crew of other nerdy women who just knew a ton of things and were very capable. And it was just, I just love all of her characters. I love her so much, and she's also just talented at both comedy and her dramatic roles get really, really incredible. The filmed version of some of her theater projects, her version of Trojan Women is really intense. I finally saw Long Day's Journey into Night that she was in with Sidney Lumet, and she is heartbreaking in that. So like to be able to flip so easily between the two genres, like we were saying with Stephanie Sue, I think she was able to do that in such an incredible way. So for her incredible presence both on the screen and off, I always know I'm going to have a good time when I sit down to watch one of her movies. Actually, when I left, my husband had just put on Philadelphia Story because that's one of his comfort movies, and he's feeling sick. And I was like, well, here I go. I'm going to go talk about Katharine Hepburn now.
That is the movie I was going to bring up. Like, I love Philadelphia Story is what made me fall in love with her. She's just such a broad, you know what I mean, in the way that we got them in the 30s and 40s. And as you sort of said about wearing the trousers and pants, talk about someone who wanted to do something on her own terms, her own way. I love the fact that she got labeled as this box office poison. I think that was the first time we had this phrase and it was used against her. So talk about someone who wants to fight back against that, fight against the system and say, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. And look at that longevity, look at that staying power, and look at the accolades that she was able to be awarded over the years. She's an absolute Hollywood legend, Hollywood mainstay. I love this pick. Jeannine, give us your thoughts on Katharine Hepburn, please.
Well, I do co-host a classic films podcast, so she's kind of become a staple on our channel for sure. She just has this great presence. She's able to have this really good balance of commanding yet vulnerable. Like you said, I love how she fights against kind of the glamour of the time. It's super refreshing for that era. She can seem to have chemistry with anybody, any leading man. And she just feels so grounded. Like she feels very real in her characters. I absolutely love her in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner when she gives that speech to that horrible woman who's being racist. And her whole kind of chemistry and relationship with Spencer Tracy, they were always so electric on screen. And just, you know, how the comedy they would do together, the drama they would do together, a perfect match. And I just love her. She's great.
Melissa, what are your thoughts on Katharine Hepburn?
Yeah, I fell in love with her with Bringing Up Baby, but I do think my favorite role, now that I've kind of watched more of her movies, is probably The Lion in Winter. That script is very sharp, but her words, ooh, they come out like venom. They're so good. And she has that distinct voice, like
yes.
I feel like we haven't brought
the queen of
yet.
the transatlantic accent.
Yes, and it's so good. And yeah, she brings so much charisma to the screen, and I think her legacy is definitely empowering women to like have that determination and individuality about yourself type of thing. But no, she's just fantastic, and I'm excited to continue watching more of her movies. But I would say that's probably my favorite thus far.
Yeah,
it's something that just talks a bit deeper than just the story itself. You know, that's what I try to do.
Abby, tell us about your pick of Julia Ducournau.
Yes, so I picked Julia Ducournau. I wanted to try and keep things in the realm of horror-ish for me, just because that's mostly what I know. And I think she really is what there are a lot of, as of recent, there's a lot of new and upcoming really great women directors in horror right now. And I think she is one of the best that's doing it right now. She is a French director, and she's only done 2 full-length movies so far. She has done some shorts in her earlier career, but her 2 movies that she's done so far is Raw and Titan. And I rewatched both of them just to kind of prepare for this, and they both really hold up, honestly. They are not, obviously, for everybody. When I say she does horror, like, she's a weirdo. She really is. Like, I think she really goes places. But one of the things that I appreciate the most about her, honestly, and what I love most about horror, honestly, is that she takes a lot of real world issues, a lot of personal issues that you can relate to, some that you can't relate to. She just really twists them and makes them into these weird and gross situations, but it makes them interesting too, and makes them kind of scary. I mean, her movies aren't scary in like the traditional sense, but if you really watch them, they are scary with some of the things that she does and some of the things that she talks about. So yeah, that's why I wanted to bring her up, because I really think she is one of the best new and upcoming horror directors in the game right now. And I really can't wait to see what she does next and what weird and wacky thing she puts on screen.
This was a name I definitely wasn't familiar with, but I've heard about Raw and I've heard about Titan. And then when I like clicked those 2 things together, I'm like, now the picture's all making sense. What an absolutely provocative voice in horror at the moment, and someone who's taking up the mantle for body horror in the same way of a Cronenberg, and is usually such a more male-dominated essence of horror when we break that down. So I think that is just so cool. Nicki, what are your thoughts on Julia Ducournau?
I was going to say, I'm the opposite. I do not know if I can rewatch them again. I just have a weak stomach. I do enjoy horror thoroughly.
Fair. It's very fair.
But that's the thing. It's like, I appreciate that on such an artistic level. I mean, it's not a perfect comparison, but I also think of filmmakers like Yorgos. I'd rather have people that are balls to the walls with some of the stuff they're doing. And even if it doesn't stick perfectly, I appreciate that. And that's something that we haven't seen before. I mean, one movie is about effing a car. How much crazier can you possibly get? I mean, but just even the idea. But that's like I said, I appreciate it. I mean, I want to say it's raw. That's too corny, but it really is in kind of a sense, though. And while I personally like, it's hard to stomach, I enjoy them in other aspects beyond that, and that's the kind of filmmaking I'm excited to see more of.
Absolutely. Hannah, what are your thoughts on Julia?
Yeah, I haven't seen Raw. I saw Titan, and I have to admit, it was, so this is going to sound negative. I hated it, but it was so visceral. It was such a visceral horror movie. And especially, it was something where I was like, this movie was not mine, but I am fascinated with this director, and I cannot wait to see what she does next, because I think at some point down the line, it might not be this movie, but I think there's going to be something that she does that is going to latch on to me in the same way that this did for others. And because it was such a strange, out there, extreme, like physically uncomfortable movie to watch. But in that way, it was exciting and engaging, even if I was like, I can't ever watch that again. But I love with Titan especially how like so much of that was, again, the female perspective in horror. As someone who is child-free myself, this visceral horror of pregnancy of this person was like hitting me too hard. I was like, this is too much. And that's a perspective that I think she brings to it that is different, that she's got, she's looking at all the little things that go into physical changes in the female body and what can happen, what that can look like, and using that to bring up all these emotions. And so even though I didn't want to go back and ever rewatch that again, I want to watch everything else she's done. I want to watch Raw, because even if I hate it, I still want to watch it, because it's still going to be interesting, and I'm still going to be like seeing things that I've never seen before, and that's always exciting in horror.
Amazing. Melissa, I know you were very excited for this pick. Tell us your thoughts and feelings on Julia, please.
Yeah, peek behind the curtain. When Abby submitted this, I was like, God damn it, that was going to be my pick. So, absolutely love this pick. No, I think I echo essentially what a lot of y'all were saying. I think she is such a bold storyteller with her movies that she's done so far. Very visually stunning, and I think both films are very like metaphorical with kind of what she's going for the horror of it all. And yeah, it's definitely not your typical horror, but it's one that just has really sat with me, both films. Raw, I have never felt so nauseous in my life after watching a movie, but I loved it. I kind of love movies that like physically make me ill, but that's just me. But yeah, it was quite the movie. And then Titan, I don't know, I think I prefer Titan a bit more. I have rewatched it now, I think 2 or 3 times. And it's interesting because both movies actually share a lot of the same themes of like family, love, identity, but just in different ways of like how it's presented. But yeah, no, I'm so excited for whatever she does next. Like, she's definitely somebody that if like I see her involved in any kind of like way, I will buy my ticket and go see it, absolutely, because she's pushing the boundary. She's talking about some taboo subjects, and I'm here for it.
It was very, very important, every single frame, how it looked, where they stood in front of the window, how the characters used their bodies.
Next, I'm going to throw it to Jeannine, and your pick, Kasi Lemmons. Please tell us about her.
So Kasi Lemmons, she started her career, I think, probably best known as the Black best friend in horror, appearing in things like The Silence of the Lambs and Candyman. And then she got into directing. Her feature film debut was Eve's Bayou. That film got a lot of acclaim. It's in the Library of Congress. I think Roger Ebert's review was so good that it made it a box office success. And she also delved into quite a few biopics. She did the Harriet biopic. She did the recent Whitney Houston biopic. And her style is really interesting. Like you can watch different shots of films like The Caveman's Valentine or even Eve's Bayou and feel like you're looking at an art piece. What I love about her is she's able to kind of delve into the issue that I have when labeling, as somebody who's Black who, consumes media. I always struggle with putting that label on something, saying Black films, because you want Black films to be a part of the bigger whole, part of films in general. You want to have that inclusion. But then you also struggle with, well, you like calling it a Black thing because then you're showing pride in that and you're highlighting that it's this wonderful thing created by a minority group. So I always struggle with putting that label on things. But her films, you just feel like you're watching characters who view the world through a Black lens, and them being Black isn't inherently determining the story or who these characters are. If you look at something like Eve's Bayou, that film is set in the South, I believe in like the 40s, and any kind of racial issues have nothing to do with the story. It's depicting an affluent Black family. The patriarch is a doctor. And so you're not thinking about any kind of racial things in that story. You're just kind of watching characters who see the world through that lens. And so she's really able to balance that kind of struggle that I have as a Black person kind of consuming media in kind of separating it. And so I love that about her work for sure. Eve's Bayou is my favorite film of hers. It's just so beautiful. She actually wrote that film as well. So you feel like it's a very personal story. The performances are great. She does some really interesting things visually in that film. Like we have a character who's telling a story. She's standing there narrating the story to her niece, and we're seeing the story happen in the reflection of a mirror. And then when her character enters the story that she's telling, we see her appear in the mirror next to the characters in that flashback story. So like she does really cool things like that. I feel like people just off the top of their head could maybe name like 2 Black female directors. So I really just wanted to shine a light on her for sure. So
I think what an absolute ballsy move to go from an actress and be so confident in yourself and want to tell stories and be able to go like, I'm going to go be a writer director in the late 80s to the 90s. I think that's such a power move. And so when you see that story, and I think she won specific awards like from actress to directors or writers. I think they even have like some independent spirit sort of awards like that. And I think that's amazing. Hannah, what are your thoughts on Casey?
So Eve's Bayou, unfortunately, is the only. No, wait, I have seen the Whitney Houston biopic. That was good too. But Eve's Bayou was an early watch for me when I was really first. I grew up in the homogenous Midwest where it was all people who looked like me, and Eve's Bayou was one of the first movies that really. Because you're right, Jeannine. It is just a story about a family, and obviously, it's just a story about a family, and so it was so easy for me to connect to, and it was so easy for me to be like, oh, obviously, this is just a story. And it really unlocked in me the interest in wanting to deliberately seek out viewpoints that were not my own, lenses that were not my own, and be like, there's no reason to think that I can't connect with these. And so it was one of those films that in my early discovery of film was one of the ones that kind of unlocked that I don't have to stick within the people who just look like me. And that was, it was such an easy way in because it is such a relatable and personal and intimate story and so beautifully done. Yeah. And so Eve's Bayou was a huge part of my film growth.
That's awesome.
Nicki, what are your thoughts on Casey?
I unfortunately haven't seen any of her acting work, but in terms of her directing work, like you said she has a very defining, unique visual style and kind of the way that she shoots her films. And just like you said, between Eve's Bayou and Harriet, something that like really stood out to me is she has kind of a way of shooting visions and flashbacks that are like very anxiety inducing, and they very much pop off the screen. And I'm sure like some people can look at that and think like, oh, that's so gimmicky, but I think that's really conveying kind of the feelings of the characters in those moments. And I think that's a really very interesting visual storytelling mechanism. Yeah. And she really feels like an actor's director, just some of the stuff she pulls out of them. Like, I used to, before Birds of Prey, I only knew Jurnee Smollett as Denise in Full House. And seeing her in that role, she is so, like as a child actor, she's so great. She's so authentic in that role. And I can see now how Cynthia got that Oscar nomination. So I felt very moved in the films of hers that I have watched, and I can see entirely why you picked her for this.
Amazing. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Casey?
Yeah, thank you, Jeannine, for bringing this to me, because I had not seen any of her movies, but I did watch Eased by You, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a great directorial debut, and it's a very like a haunting coming of age story. It almost is filmed like a horror movie in different aspects, and I really like that. Because I love horror, and I have seen her in her earlier horror roles like Vampire's Kiss, Silence of the Lambs, Candyman, but I haven't seen any of her directorial work until Eve's by You. And I thought it was fantastic, and I think with her acting experience is what she's able to kind of get those acting performances in that director role, because that was one of the best child performances I've ever seen. It was incredible. I was pretty shocked by it. She was doing circles around Samuel L. Jackson. I was like, what is happening? This is great. So I'm excited to check out more of her work, and I hope she has more movies coming out here soon too.
With me and Rachel, it felt frustrating. So she really wanted to make something that was more accurate to like how young women actually like young female sexuality. And I wanted to make something for queer girls. And we sort of came to like this beautiful idea and brainstormed quite a bit together of how to find it. So
we're going to finish up our round talking about women who make film with your choice, Melissa, of Emma Seligman. Tell us about her, please.
Yes. So I chose Emma today because she's just somebody I find very inspiring. This woman is 28 years old, and she has made two of my favorite movies, which is Shiva Baby and Bottoms. Shiva Baby was her college thesis film that was a short film originally, and then she made it into a feature length later on. And this movie is just so good. And she wrote both of these movies as well. And the humor behind it is just so relatable. And I don't know about y'all, but I love cringe comedy, and both of these movies have that. And it's so great seeing this young writer and director kind of coming up in her career, kind of very similar to Julia. She's only made, two movies so far, but I'm so excited to see kind of where she goes in her career. And Bottoms was like my favorite movie, or not my favorite, but one of my favorite movies of last year. And maybe this is my hint to Kelly to go watch Bottoms. Giving her And I also cheated a little bit with this pick because in both movies she has Rachel Sonnet, and I feel like they're just such a good combo. And Rachel helped co-write Bottoms, which is awesome. But they're just like a good duo, and I'm excited to see what they continue to do together, or even on their own as well. I just think they're both very talented ladies, kind of up and coming.
This is a name that's got all our panel excited. Everyone wants to talk about it, so I'm going to give the floor straight to Nicki. Nicki, what are your thoughts on Emma?
Oh my gosh. When you said in the chat, I saw the preview in Messenger, and I saw Emma S, and part of me is like, Emma Stone's too obvious. I bet this is Emma Seligman, and I felt so validated. But I've not seen Shiva Baby. At the risk of sounding like Will Ferrell, I do have Jewish friends who said that they watched the movie and they loved it and they connected with it really deeply. And everything I've heard about is fantastic, but Bottoms is just such balls to the walls insanity. When Pat and I started watching it, initially we were a little bit confused, I guess, with the tone she was going for. But then once we got into it and really saw what she was going for, it's oh, this is what she's trying to do. I mean, literally, you have the craziest background characters and just this realistic but absurdist world. I mean, you walk into the classroom, there's this football player in a cage in the back. It's it's so bizarre, but that is what really elevates the film. And I love Rachel. Rachel is so talented. Since we're cheating here, I wasn't as high on Bodies as everyone else, but she was the standout of that movie. And she's great in everything I've seen her in. So honestly, I love the cheated dual pick.
Anna, what are your thoughts on Emma/Rachel?
So this was the only name that was, when mentioned, what everybody was looking at. This was the only name that I didn't immediately recognize, and then got busy and did not look it up. And so I was like, oh, I'll just hear about her and learn about her. And then as soon as you mentioned Shiva Baby, I went, oh, I loved that one. And I had not. This is why I love being part of this conversation. I had not put together that she had also done Bottoms, which I have not seen, but it's been on my list. And so I love that, this standalone movie that I saw and just absolutely adored. The comedy is so perfect, but it's also this just truly relatable story about like, what do you do when you're trying to figure out your life as an adult, and bringing out the person who actually made this happen and making me excited to be like, oh, she has another movie out. I absolutely have to see that, and I absolutely have to remember this name now. So thank you for that pick to bring it to my mind.
Love it. Abby, what are your thoughts on Emma/Rachel?
So yeah, these are two movies that I really, really love. And they're both movies that I didn't expect to like as much as I did. Shiva Baby it's really amazing. I'm not always a fan of the cringe comedy, but she did it very, very well. She made it very relatable in a movie that seems like it could be difficult to relate to. Like, I'm not Jewish, but it was relatable. Just the relationships that she had, trying to figure out your life, being in college, what am I going to do? So all of that was really well done. And then Bottoms, another movie that I thought was honestly going to be kind of annoying. And it was in my top 10 of last year. Just for I'm obviously not going to spoil it because it's like one of the best scenes that I've seen like ever, maybe even last year, but like the end scene in that movie on the football field, one of the best that I've ever seen, honestly.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like, you need to see the movie just for that. So yeah, I think she is also one of the best up and coming directors in comedy right now. Like, I really think she knows the craft well. And again, I can't wait to see what she does next.
Oh, fantastic. Jeannine, what are your thoughts on Emma and Rachel?
So I haven't seen Shiva Baby, but I saw Bottoms. My friend sat me down and forced me to watch it. We were like at a house party and there were like some screens on. And so she like made whoever's party it was like put it on. But because I couldn't hear it, she was getting frustrated. She's like, no, we're leaving this party and you're going to watch this movie. And I absolutely loved it. It was this perfect balance of relatability in terms of the dialogue and the characters, but also so campy, and just, meeting that balance was so well done and so fun. I thought it was incredibly smart, and refreshing for this kind of high school movie to have lesbian characters as your leads, but it's not, a thing. It's just, that's who they are. So I love that aspect of it, and kind of how everything comes about is just really funny. The comedy's great. I just had so much fun with this movie. I think she's brilliant and I want to see more from her. So, yeah.
Thank you. That was one thing I forgot to say is I love that both of these movies are queer perspectives. And I feel like if I saw these movies as a young teen, like, it would be life-changing. So yeah. I really appreciate her spreading the queer perspective out into the universe more.
Yes, we love our diversity. That's going to wrap up our Women That Make the Film segment. So now we're going to talk about some of our female characters, some of the characters that have just touched our lives and we just want to share with each other. And I'm going to kick off the conversation with a child performance that really hit me in the mid-90s. This was of my era when I was growing up. And I just adore the character of Matilda. And I'm talking specifically the 96 Myra Wilson version, who was just the child actress of the time. Like, she was just everywhere in movies. And this was the defining role for me as this young girl who had such resolve in what she was doing. She was so steadfast in what she knew was right, what was wrong. She was smart. She didn't hide it, but at the same time, she didn't flaunt it. She never made anyone feel little than or less than, that they couldn't keep up with her. But it was just so impressive, when she was doing those sums in her heads. And she just had a thirst for knowledge, loved the library, walked down to her little library with her little red wagon and would go on these adventures, like very Rory Gilmore-esque, like I would lose myself in these books with these authors. And it was just very inspiring. Probably one of the reasons I work in the library now is directly through to this little girl here. And I recommend that book to other young children because I'm like, this is just someone who is different, who is just not ashamed to be themselves and search out the greater good. And in that same Cinderella vein of what we've talked about earlier, Melissa, it's like if your circumstances around you aren't great, don't give up. Just keep being yourself and it will change and it will get better. And you will find people like your Miss Honeys that make the world a big, beautiful place for you. So I love this character of Matilda. Nicki, what are your thoughts on her?
I want to talk about the musical, but we're talking about the movie, so I'll talk about the movie. I was very lucky. I got to take a lot of children's lit classes in college, and for one of them, I got to write a paper about the book and the movie. And something that I especially appreciate about Mara's performance and Matilda's portrayal in the movie compared to the book is in the book, there's this section, it's after Mr. Wormwood's trying to force her to watch TV, and there's a narrative that says, she didn't cry because she knew there was no point in crying. And what I like in the movie, she has at least one scene where she's vulnerable and she breaks down and she's kind of just in her room crying. And I really appreciate that about her performance because she plays her very maturely and stoically a lot of the time. But I like that she's still a young child. She still is relatable and is vulnerable and fallible. And I do like that she has those dimensions to that performance. One where, like I said, I would say she is pretty mature and well put together for the most part. But there are so many of those layers to it and just the way she reacts to things. And Mara Wilson was so phenomenal. I mean, she was just a phenomenal actress in general, but in that role, I freaking love that movie. And she really has a lot to do with it by elevating that performance.
Absolutely. Hannah, what are your thoughts on Matilda?
I think this character is so enduring, and we've seen different versions of this character that continue to resonate with people. We have the original book that people just fell in love with, and then we have the 96 version, which people fell in love with, and now my musical theater kids that I'm teaching now are falling in love with the musical version. And I think there's something just so compelling about this character, who is kind-hearted, but has not a lot of people who are returning that to her. And someone, I think, Kelly, I love her thirst for knowledge, that she's, again, I was the young nerdy girl. I was like, well, when are my books going to give me telekinetic powers? And it didn't happen. But I think there are always those kids around who want to see that. And I love that Matilda gives her, she gets the power to fight for good. She never uses that power to hurt those who are in need. She uses it to fight back and to help the people around her, not just herself. And that's such a cool and such a powerful thing. And I think that's why we get, generation after generation retellings of this story that are still resonating with those little 10-year-old girls who are like, ooh, this is what I can do with my life.
Absolutely. Jeannine, what are your thoughts on Matilda?
Absolutely love this character. You feel like everything she does means more because those were things she taught herself. Nobody taught her how to be a good person, how to, the importance of looking nice, the importance of being kind to people, the importance of learning how to cook for yourself and take care of yourself. So all of those actions that she does mean so much more than anyone else because no one taught her that. She taught herself how to do those things. So just the power in that with that character, I think, is such a beautiful message. And also just kind of for kids, or I think us in general as film fans, we fall in love with characters and wish they could be our friends. And it's so heartbreaking the fact that these characters in these stories, she, wishes that she had friends like that and pretends that they're her friends. And I think we can all kind of relate to that on some level. So just love this character. She's just strong, and her kindness and the things that she teaches people when nobody taught it to her, I think is super special.
Absolutely. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Matilda?
I absolutely love this. This was definitely one I could have easily chosen, and it's such a staple in my childhood. Like I mean, this movie was on repeat with me and my sister, and we would always like play pretend, and like I'd be Miss Trunchbull sometimes, I'd be Miss Honey sometimes, be Matilda, So like this is just such a like movie and story that like really like goes back for me. But no, I think Matilda is a really great role model. It's really encouraging for reading, for one, but then also just like embracing your strengths and standing up for yourself and for others. Like, you could do it, Brucey. Like, are you kidding me? So great.
Yes, I think it works.
Nicki, we're going to get into your choice. Tell us about Peggy Carter.
Oh my gosh. At the risk of sounding mildly regressive for a video about women, I'm very biased towards this because Pat and I love to call each other, he's my Steve and I'm his Peggy. We love the MCU, if you can't tell. But what makes her so great to me is you have this universe of wizards and aliens and people with superpowers. And the MCU, I would say as a whole, like has such great writing with the characters who are not superpowered. Your Natashas and Yelenas and your Kates. And Peggy especially, rewatching the movie and the Agent Carter one-shot, it's funny because I feel like she's kind of a 1940s Elle Woods. She's in a male-dominated area where she doesn't lose her femininity and how much of a badass she is, because she doesn't take the shit from anyone, but she does have the softer side to her, and she sees the potential and greatness in Steve and just like knows how to get shit done while still having that caring and moral compass to her. Oh my gosh. And it just guts me, the ending scene when he's trying to dive bomb the plane and they're just having a normal conversation. She's just keeping it together, like as what she believes are his dying moments, and then only breaking down once he is actually gone. And then even just the bits and snippets we get in the rest of the franchise. And Hayley Atwell just kills it as this character. I freaking love her.
That was the next thing I was about to say, is like Hayley Atwell just shines in this role and really brought some guts and some substance to what could potentially be a more forgettable love interested character. It's her grit and determination, and that Britishness just comes through with it all. And as you sort of said, like she just doesn't suffer fools. You think about like that training thing when she grabs the gun, it's like bam, bam, bam. Like I really enjoy Peggy Carter. I know this is film, so she's one of the highlights of the first Avenger, but I love that we get the What If series and we do get her as like a full realized Captain Britain. When I saw that episode title, I was like, hell yes, like this is what I've been waiting for, like just bringing some of that comics flavor into it and those like Elseworld story. I loved to see her in the forefront and how much she even shined in that part. So fingers crossed that we still might even get something like that in the movies and stuff. I would love to see that. Abby, what are your thoughts on Peggy Carter?
Yeah, so she is, I mean, just again, echoing what both of you have said already, she is one of the more interesting human characters in the MCU. Honestly, one of the toughest. Honestly, I love her relationship with Captain America / Steve Rogers. And I think even just, it was so devastating to see in the recent MCU, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, what they do to the character in there. I think that just makes it really devastating, and it does not do her justice, because really she is, like I said, one of the more tough and interesting female characters in the MCU. So I would like to see more, but not that.
It was kind of also cool that for a long time she was one of our only storylines as well for the MCU. Like we got to at least see her age and see her relationship with Sharon, and like we at least got to have her be a connective thread throughout a lot of those early phases. So that was cool. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Peggy Carter?
Yeah, I will admit I am not one that is very emotionally connected to the MCU like most. It's not really my thing. But at the end of the day, she is breaking barriers, and she is kind of making change in this, like you had said. I love the Elle Woods comparison. I'll have to like think of that when I'm watching it back, because I will admit I've only seen probably all the MCU movies maybe once. But no, she's a badass and she's great. But I maybe don't emotionally connect to it as much.
We should cry.
Sadness, no!
We can't cry in front of other kids! Stop her!
Stop it, Sadness!
I can't help it, Joy. I'm entering a sadness spiral.
Disgusting.
Hannah, one of the more interesting choices we have tonight. I love this pick. Tell us about Sadness from Inside Out, please.
Yeah. So last time I was on this panel, I chose Tracy Turnblad as kind of like my heart of optimism and joy. And I was like, well, let's do the flip side of the human emotion spectrum. I think the movie Inside Out did so much in terms of putting forth the destigmatizing sometimes just the feeling of emotions there were so many conversations being had around this. And I think one of the things that really stuck out to me as kind of a melancholy person myself, and somebody who often felt like I was being surrounded by people who were like, just cheer, have you tried being happy? And I was like, well, yes, but antidepressants also work. And so, but there can be such a sense that when you are sad, that you are bringing other people down, that you are making life worse for them. And that carries a lot of weight with it. And I absolutely adore the one scene. It's like probably one of the most influential film scenes of all for me, is the one scene where Sadness is the only one who can make the stuffed animal feel better. She's the only one who can make the imaginary friend feel better, because she is willing to sit in that sadness with him, and let him be sad and talk about the sadness, while Joy is like, don't do that. You're going to make him feel worse. But because she's able to sit with that and just be sad with him and just mourn with him, he's able to feel it fully, move on through it, and then continue on with things. And I loved that was an aspect that she was able to have empathy for this person, because she knew she was fully in touch with what it felt like to be sad, to lose something, to miss someone. And that's something that was so significant to me. The idea that that melancholy and sadness does not have to be a burden on the people around you, but can instead be used as a gift. It can be a gift to allow me to empathize with people around me who are going through things that I have as well. And that was such a beautifully told way to get this very big message across for little kids in a movie ostensibly for children. And so I sobbed all the way through the second half of this movie, like ugly cried in the theater. And I just absolutely, I love this character, and I love what she does for in a kid's movie. We don't get to see characters like this, and we definitely don't see them told with this kind of love and empathy and an affirmation that sadness is not a bad thing. It's just a thing, and sometimes it can help us connect with other people.
Thank you so much for your beautiful words, Hannah. Inside Out's it's my most favorite Pixar film, and it's for a lot of the reasons you're saying. As someone else who's gone through a big history of mental health struggles, I too sat in the cinema and went, oh wow, like this is speaking directly to me. I feel like sadness just shot through the screen and straight into my heart. I have a very similar take. It's the scene where Riley's upset, and Joy says, sadness lets mum and dad know that I'm not okay. And I've just never heard it put so bluntly before, just how necessary it is, because it does feel like as a world, we just want to talk about only the joy. And I loved in the movie that I found joy very grating, and then I found like, but why is she pushing down sadness? And I just wanted to uplift her the whole way through. So I just adore the portrayal of this character. I think it's, as you sort of said, such an important thing to show that everything's okay. I love clocking that the mum's head is driven by sadness as well. I thought that was just phenomenal, that everyone else has a different driving emotion that is running, and she looked well adjusted, she looked happy, she was still enjoying it. So you can still have sadness there, but it doesn't mean that that's your whole defining trait. And yeah, I just love this. Nicki, what are your thoughts on sadness?
I have such a complicated relationship with this movie.
Me too.
As Kelli and Hannah know, I know a thing or two about Pixar. When I initially saw it, I was considerably not high on it like everyone else was. And I truly think, because damn, that was like 9 years ago now. I think I'm at a point now where I get it more. Because the thing about Sadness as a character that actually really stands out to me, whether or not this was intentional, is there's kind of the scenes near the beginning when she is quote unquote ruining everything and Joy's yelling at her and she's like, I'm sorry, I don't know why. And like that clicks so much because that really is what sadness is I mean, and that's how emotions are. They can be irrational to where you just kind of do these things to where and you can't explain why. And you know, like, oh, this is bad, so to speak. But it's just kind of the natural through line of life at times. And I think that's something that, yeah, you learn to cope with it. You learn like you can find ways to kind of go through those motions, but that is just, it's inevitable. And I think that is something that has really helped me connect and understand the movie and those characters a lot more. And just seeing the depths of that and really how effective and how people can really see themselves in that now.
Oh, beautiful. Abby, what are your thoughts on the character of Sadness?
So I'm probably not going to say anything like new or groundbreaking compared to what you guys have said, but I really do love this character. Inside Out is also one of my favorite Pixar movies just because of how smart it is with everything and how it portrays the emotions. And I mean, sadness is really the whole point of the entire movie. Just the whole ending of it where it shows how through sadness can come happiness and joy. Just really smart. And I think the character was just so well done and honestly fun, really funny at times too. Like, sadness isn't funny like in general, but like the character herself like has some really funny moments throughout the movie. So I really think like this is a really great pick. I love this a lot.
Oh, fantastic. Jeannine, what are your thoughts on the character of Sadness?
So on my first time watch of this film, I hated it. I hated Sadness because I was focusing on the wrong things. I was very much like, Phyllis, stop touching everything. You're making Riley cry.
Phyllis, stop touching everything.
I was focusing on like, you know, you're embarrassing poor Riley in front of everybody. What are you doing to her? But on subsequent rewatches, you know, I took different things into account and really focused on, you know, sadness being this kind of healing thing. Like you think about having a deep, hard cry and how good you feel after something like that. You know, I think about, you know, pondering on memories and being sad that they're gone, but you're happy that you had those memories. Like I would, you know, read my yearbooks after, you know, at the end of the year in junior high and read all the messages and cry listening to, you know, mopey, sad music, you know, reminiscing on these great memories I had. So, you know, going into it with a different mindset, I was able to really pick up on all of the great things this character is bringing to the story. And I mean, you have to understand, like right off the bat, they're telling you that sadness is going to be the focal point of the story. It's a little girl leaving her home, going to a new place. That's going to make you sad. So she is going to be the driving force of the story. So, you know, coming into it on a second watch, taking those things into account, focusing on the right things in the story, I was really able to appreciate it a lot more. But on my first watch, I was just like, poor Riley, what are you doing to her? You know, so.
Oh, amazing. Melissa, what are your thoughts on the character of Sadness?
Yeah, I love Inside Out. It's definitely top. It's not my favorite. I mean, my last name's Woody, so. No, I think Sadness is an incredible character. I love that she isn't one-dimensional. I feel like she does add a lot of depth to the character. She represents sadness, but she isn't fully sadness, which I love. And I love that the character arc is that she's embracing her role in Riley's life. And then further, like Riley's also accepting all of those emotions within herself. So it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful journey. And I love it.
Abby, tell us about your pick of Coraline.
Yeah, so I love Coraline. This is the movie itself is one of my favorite movies ever. And the character herself, so this movie came out 2009. I was a teenager, well, almost a teenager, a little bit younger. And I wanted to be this character. Like, I was obsessed with her. I wanted blue hair. I wanted to go out in the mud, in the rain, adventures, and like find a well and meet people. I just wanted to be her. But then throughout the movie, she's really just such a brave character, outgoing. I just really love seeing her go on this journey through this really creepy and honestly really scary situation that she's in. She's also a character who is in a new environment, trying to, I guess, find herself in a way. Her parents want nothing to do with her. So it's really just a sympathetic character, honestly. And again, I just really love her a lot. And I love the movie as a whole, honestly. Like, she's just really great.
I love that we get these, well, I grew up loving Nightmare Before Christmas, so anything in that Henry Selick, ooky spooky, makes it fun for kids, want to see yourself through those eyes of those characters, and I think that's what Coraline's become, a bit of a symbol of the generation, as well as Other Mother and things like that. So I love, and this is Laker, so we're getting all that stop motion goodness as well, just to talk about outside of the actual character herself. But I like how you say, she gives me very Alice in Wonderland. You know, she's just very inquisitive and wants to explore this other world and is taken in by all these wondrous things, but is everything exactly as it seems, and has to sort of learn those lessons. So I love this pick. Nicki, what are your thoughts on Coraline?
Oh, I immediately echo your comments about Leica, because that really elevates the whole story as a whole, but also just the designs, because the buttons have like such a huge symbolism in that movie. And like you said, like her, because that's what's so great about animation in general, is you have crazy things like, oh, she has blue hair, some of these designs, and it just feels more natural because of the medium. It just feels naturalistic to that. But her as a character, she's an absolute blast, to where the movie is definitely like, it is basically horror. And there's a lot of creepiness to it, but there's still the levity. I mean, she has sass, the whole "why were you born" shtick that she repeats ad nauseum. And I think that's just what makes her a really endearing character. Yes, does she have some bratty moments? Sure, but she's very sympathetic. She makes me think of Chihiro from Spirited Away a lot, but actually probably cooler, if we're being honest. So I really adore her, and I think the movie is phenomenal.
Oh, great. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Coraline?
Oh, I love this movie and I love this pick. I think it's great. This is definitely one of those theater experiences I remember, like, because it blew my mind. I was like, yes, like, this is everything I love. It's ooky spooky and it's this badass girl. Like, I'm here for it. And I love, like, stop motion animation. That's definitely one of my favorite kind of forms of animation, because it's just the effort that goes behind all the details and everything is just so incredible. But yeah, I love her curiosity and like adventurous kind of spirit that she has, and she's a very relatable character. And I do like the arc of the story, and it's a great horror gateway type of movie. So this is one I would show my kids. Like, hey, if you like the spooky ooky, maybe we'll start here and see what happens.
Think again. It's your turn to scream, asshole.
Staying on the horror train, Jeannine, tell us about your pick of Sidney Prescott from the Scream franchise, please.
So I am a huge fan of the Scream franchise. It's my all-time favorite horror franchise, and I love this character. I love the strength we see kind of build up in her throughout the series. You know, we open this film with her being this character struggling with not just the loss of her mother, but having to reconcile with who her mother really was, not really knowing her at all. And by the end of the film, with these killers and their motivation, she's, you know, having to face it head on. And I think that's kind of where she finds her strength, facing that. And ultimately, by the end of the film, you know, we see her running and hiding. And then by the end of the film, she's putting on the Ghostface costume. She's fighting back. She's calling them on the phone, taunting them. And then we kind of get in the second film where she's, you know, trying to normalize herself and you know, get past things. She has a boyfriend. She's in the school play. But she still has these kinds of walls up. You know, I like when she, you know, is struggling with her performance in the play, and she has this conversation with her, her film teacher, or her the play professor, and he tells her, you have to remember that you're a fighter. And so I think in that moment, she really believes that. So by the end of this film, she's fighting back and she finds that strength. But then we move forward and she's scared and putting walls up again because people are getting hurt because of her. So she goes into hiding. And even though she's in this place of hiding, she's still finding a way to help people. So despite being closed off, she, works at a crisis hotline and she's listening to people's trauma and trying to help people and counseling people. So I love that she has this drive to help people, even though she's kind of going through her own trauma. And I also have to just, give props to the character of Nancy Thompson, because I don't think we would have Sidney Prescott without Nancy Thompson of Elm Street, because she's a very similar character in that way, coming back, facing your own trauma to help others. So that's something I really love about the character. And then by the end of that movie, she comes out of hiding to protect, the people in her life. So I just love how we see the evolution of her strength growing from movie to movie, how she has this inherent need to do good, to turn her trauma into power. And she is top final girl for me.
I was just about to say, if we're talking final girls, like, she's up there, and she does carry on the mantle of a Laurie Strode, of Nancy, of just someone who's able to stick around for these franchises and just build on themselves, but still, as you sort of said, process what you're going through, because it's a traumatic experience of what they're going through, and then to have movies made about you and your story put out there and things like that, and to power through all that. I think what Nev Campbell brings to Sydney, coming from like the 96 original, like, Scream is peak mid-90s. Like, I live for it. She's just so of that era. And so it's great to see that softness. And as you sort of said, to then at the end of the film, like, she's not going to be meek and mild and back down. She's going to taunt these boys that are just like tearing her life upside down. And I love this character. Nicki, what are your thoughts on Sidney Prescott?
Oh my gosh, this franchise is so amazing. And I think what really speaks to her strength as a character is there's so many great and memorable characters in the entire franchise, and she still manages to stick out kind of, because in a way she has kind of a straight woman edge to her. But I think what makes her so compelling is, like, you kind of hit the nail on the head, is when we first meet her, like, her mother has been dead for a year. So we are only knowing her where she's already tired, she's exhausted, she's had so much she's gone through that adds, and as a freaking high schooler, like, holy hell. And I think, like, her evolution, what is so great is she gets stronger and she gets to the point where she's fighting back. But I think what I especially love is the fact that she just becomes blunt. She just says things as they are. For as much shit as 3 gets, I think there's hot parts of it that I love. And my favorite part of that film, and one of my favorite moments of the franchise, is when she tells Ghostface, shut up, stop making excuses. I don't care what your backstory is. You are just a terrible person. And that is something that a lot of villains in general need to be told. So that to me is such a standout moment, and I think is so defining for her as a character. And then you get to 5, where she's on the phone, she's like, okay, I'm bored, bye. It's just that. I love that bite of her. Nev Campbell delivers it perfectly. Freaking love it. Love this franchise. Love Sydney.
Abby, what are your thoughts on Sidney Prescott?
Yeah, so this, I almost considered picking her for my pick. For me, she is like the top tier horror final girl, slasher queen, whatever you want to call her. Even compared to some of the ones from years before, even though they came first. I love her, and I love seeing just the progression of her throughout all of these movies, even in the legacy sequels, just seeing how far she comes and what she's learned and just how she kind of ties it all up. But obviously the Scream movies are iconic. And yeah, you guys all touched on it. She really does go through a lot. So she is, I mean, she's a very sympathetic character. She's a relatable character. She really is one of the best in the horror world right now.
Absolutely. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Sydney?
Yeah, she's the heart and soul of the Scream franchise, and I think that's maybe why I don't like the newer movies as much, because she's not as big a part of it, and this franchise could just be done, in my opinion, because I think the first 4 movies are perfect. But that's just my opinion. No, I think Sidney Prescott is such a strong final girl and character. Like, she is constantly using her wits to outsmart everyone, and she, at the end of the day, like, she does have this really strong sense of empathy and compassionate towards others at the end of the day. And I love her. I think she's great. And I think she really shows like real emotion versus like, there's a lot of silly things going on in these Scream movies, but she really kind of has this very powerful like performance through all of them, where she's showing like these very like vulnerable, real emotions. And I think that's why she's the standout, even besides all these like really iconic, great other side characters. But she takes the cake, I think, for Final Girls.
Preacher, take a jump. Get hurt even. Play as well as you can. Go, team. Go. Give me an L. Give me an I. Give me a V. Give me an E. L-I-V-E. Live.
Melissa, introduce our final talking point of the evening. Tell us about Maud from Harold and Maude.
I would love to. So I'm feeling very much like Barbie in that scene where she's like, do you guys ever think about dying? With this pick a little bit? No, this movie is incredibly special to me. I first watched this when I was 16 years old, and just to get a little personal, I was really depressed, like teen, and just, things were not good. And this was definitely one of those movies that has stayed with me since then and just is very like important and special. But I wanted to bring it today because I have had loss recently with my mom and my grandma, and I've been thinking about these things. And Maud is just somebody who I feel like is a great symbol of like living life to the fullest and being your authentic self. And I think she's a very powerful character. She very much is influencing Harold in this movie to live life to the fullest. Sing out. If you want to be free, be free. It's a very beautiful film, and I think she has a lot of dimension to her because, she might come off at first as like this kind of silly, crazy old lady who's like stealing cars and kind of get into some chaos. But then as the movie goes on, it's like you start learning more and more about her, and you find out that she's a survivor of a concentration camp. And that's just like a gut punch when you see that tattoo on her arm. And just it adds this whole other layer to her character. And I find the friendship between Harold and Maud just so beautiful. Like, I don't care about the age gap personally. Like, I think it's a beautiful movie, and I love Maud.
This is one of those ones I feel like has that cult movie status. You've heard about it, before you sort of watch it. So you see that age gap, and I read the synopsis and I'm like, okay, Kelly, we just need to give it a go. Like, let's dive in, and I'm going to know in an instant whether it's for me or not. And just dove straight headfirst in and really enjoyed it. And a big part of that is the character of Maud, and as you sort of said, her zest for life. I mean, it's really so infectious. And you walk away from the movie remembering her and remembering the stories you sort of said. You think of the concentration camp and just the things that people had to go through, and just as being yourself. It's just such a great film for showing no matter what age you are, no matter what phase of life or anything like that, you just keep being you and keep finding joy in life. I thought it was a beautiful message. Abby, what are your thoughts on Maud?
Yeah, so this movie as a whole, it's very special to me as well, mainly because it's my husband's favorite movie of all time. And I watched this with him. And I think Maud is the best character in this movie. She really elevates it, because when I first watched the movie, it starts mainly with the Harold character, and I did not like him to start. I thought he was very annoying, and I know like he's a troubled boy. Like, I get it. Like but he's just like going off randomly trying to kill himself all these different times. Like it was just kind of annoying to me. But then Maud comes in, and she really is, like you guys both said, she is a very special character, and she really just takes him on this journey and shows him the good in life and just to get the most out of life while you're here, which I think is a great message. And I mean, it's something that all of us can learn from, take with us, take it however we want to. So yeah, I think she's a very special character.
That's going to wrap up our panel for today, but this has just been such an absolute pleasure. We definitely want to do more panels, and definitely for International Women's Day, it's so important that we talk about and recognise some of the people that are just so important in this passion that we all have for movies, and the trailblazers and the people that are making our future brighter. It's just lovely. I'm just going to have a quick chance for everyone to sign off. So, Nicki, thank you for joining us today. Where can people find you?
Thank you so much for having me. You can find me and my partner Pat over at the YouTube channel The Montyverse. We do weekly reviews and reaction videos. We just finished our series on Netflix's Avatar, and we're going to be doing the Knuckles series next.
Oh, fantastic. Hannah, thank you for joining us today. Where can people find you?
Yeah, probably the two best places is I have a podcast called Somebody Write This, where a guest and my co-host and I randomly generate a plot synopsis and then try to flesh that out into a plausible story. So it's always a ton of fun if you're looking for creative ideas. But I also do post movie reviews over on my TikTok, which is Hannah Kiefer 47. So if you want to see little 1-minute snippets, right now I'm making it a trek. I'm trying to watch 100 movies from the year 1930. And so you'll be seeing some of those go up along with whatever else I happen to be watching.
Sounds cool. Abby, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you?
Yes, thank you. This was a lot of fun. My husband and I make a weekly appearance on the Why We Love Horror channel over on YouTube, where we talk about a different movie every week, and we also do trivia, horror only, and all kinds of fun stuff. So check us out.
Fantastic. And Jeannine, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter. Yes, I'm still calling it Twitter. Jeannine Devine _ You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Jeannine Devine. I also host 2 podcasts on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed. We have our show Morgan Hasn't Seen, where I force my co-host Morgan to watch things he hasn't seen based around a specific theme. And then we have our classic films podcast, It's a Wonderful Podcast, where we talk classic films. So you can find that any place podcasts are found. We also have the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. We're always doing fun stuff over there as well.
Lovely. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today and for always being my most wonderful guest.
Thank you. Find us here.
Yeah, on this channel. We just, again, want to say such a big thank you to everyone here today. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. We're all here today to get our voice heard. So help us support women, get our voices out there. Thank you very much. Melissa, is there anything before we sign off?
Yes, I wanted to do something dorky, and on the count of 3, will you say "Stay magical," everyone, with me? Stay magical!